What do you do when your wife's phone lights up with a sent message to her boss, asking to spend the night, and you catch it before she clears the screen? How do you stay lawful when her friends call you controlling and her mother says it's just office flirting? Why do the first visible documents appear only at the end, in public, after weeks of quiet notes and careful calendars? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Auberon Vale, and I schedule buses for a living, so my days are built from small lines that must connect cleanly. I believed a marriage could run the same way: steady routes, clear stops, no missed signals. One night, my wife's phone lit beside the sink. A preview showed a sent message to her boss. It said she wanted to spend the night with him. The room shrank. She said it was a joke and that I was reading it wrong. She said, "Men like me fear fun." I set 2 mugs on opposite counters and kept my voice low. I saved the time, took a photo of the red circle on our wall planner, and slid a small USB into a locked drawer. At work the next day, a censored screenshot moved through chats. People said I was jealous. Her mother said it was ambition and I should relax. I told myself to breathe and count steps. I opened a clean spreadsheet with only dates and initials. I wrote as if a stranger might read it later. I would not shout. I would not threaten. I would handle this properly, in daylight and in sequence, and I would let the process carry the weight. I stood at the sink and watched a small puddle circle the drain like a slow clock. Our kitchen light hummed. The phone on the counter lit without a sound. A gray preview slid up the glass and stopped under the notch. It showed a sent message from Kira to her boss. It said she wanted to spend the night with him. I did not move. I let the words sit where they were, plain and sharp. I turned off the tap and set 2 mugs on opposite ends of the counter, the way a person sets pins to mark a lane. I told myself to breathe and keep my hands down. I picked up the phone and looked at the time. I set it back exactly where it had been. Kira came in with music still in her ears and asked why I looked like traffic at a red light. I said I needed a quiet talk. I kept my voice low and steady. I said a message had gone out from her phone to her boss. I said the words were simple and carried weight. She said it was a joke. She said work banter lived in a different world. She said I should stop reading shadows. I said I wanted respect for our name and for my work. She said men like me feared fun. She said I was turning a blink into a storm. I watched steam rise from the kettle and disappear into the light. I poured water and handed her a mug. I kept mine where it stood, like a small wall. She called the mugs a play. I said the room needed lanes. She laughed and said I should label the air like a clipboard. I said labels keep buses from colliding. She shook her head and said I was dramatic. I said I worked with roots. I said I knew how small delays become crashes. I spoke softly. I did not step closer. When she left the room to change, I opened a drawer and took out a small USB stick with today's date written in thin black letters. I slid it back in and closed the drawer. The lock clicked in a private way. My phone vibrated with a reminder that read paper drop. I swiped it away. I walked to the wall planner and took a photo of the red circle I had made last Sunday without a reason I could name. Now I could name it. I set the photo into 2 folders on my phone and watched a small cloud notice flash file uploaded successfully. The words blinked and were gone. In the bedroom, I sat at the edge of the bed and opened my laptop. The screen showed a clean desktop and a single spreadsheet with dates and 2 letter marks. I added a new line for the time I saw the preview. I added another line for the time I took the photo. I wrote the letters without full names. I wanted a record that a stranger could read without feeling heat. Footsteps came down the hall. I minimized the sheet and set my hands on my knees. The cursor hid itself in the corner like a small animal. Kira leaned on the doorframe and said, I was going to ruin a normal evening. I said I wanted truth and care. She said truth was boring and care was control. She said her boss knew how to laugh and I should learn. I said I did not want to be a joke at my own table. She said the message meant nothing. She asked if I was going to follow her around with a notepad. I said I already carried one for work. I said it kept the city on time. She left the doorway with a breath that sounded like a small door closing. I looked at the guest blanket folded at the foot of the bed. The fold line was not straight. I straightened it with 2 fingers, then stopped myself and left the rest. In the spare room, I heard the faint hum of a shredder start and end, quick as a cough. I walked to the door and stood there. The bin was clean. The cord was still coiled. I did not ask a question I could not use. I went back to the kitchen. I wrote "Bring forms" on a yellow sticky note and slid it behind my ID in the wallet. I placed a thin binder labeled Utilities on the table. It was thicker than bills should make it. I did not open it. I moved it a finger width so I would see it in the morning. I took a photo of the top corner of a clipboard that showed only the word "statement." I did not write under it. I placed the photo inside a quiet album between beach pictures and a birthday cake. I stood still and listened to the hum of the refrigerator. The kitchen smelled like metal, tea, and a little dust. My sister Mara sent a message that asked if I was okay. I typed, "I need help." I deleted it. I typed, "It is messy here." I deleted it. I typed, "All good," and sent it. A single heart came back. It glowed like a small lamp in another house. I wrote the time in a pocket notebook and closed it. I put the notebook in the locked drawer and listened to the click. I walked to the balcony and let the cold air flatten my breath. Across the street, windows lit in slow rows. I counted to 10 and told myself 3 rules. No yelling, no public scenes, no threats. I added a 4th rule in a soft voice. Clean steps only. I came back inside and found Kira at the mirror, fixing a stray hair and tilting her head at angle number 3. She said we had a dinner tomorrow and I should not bring my work face. I said my face would be calm. She said calm was dull. I said dull keeps bridges standing. She rolled her eyes and called me a manual in shoes. In the hallway, I opened my laptop again. I checked the folders and mirrored the photo from the wall planner into Archive A, then into Archive B. The cloud pop-up blinked once more. I set my phone to vibrate and turned the screen face down. I placed 2 mugs in the sink and washed them without a word. I dried them and returned them to opposite counters because the space between them helped me think. I went back to the bedroom and changed into a plain shirt. I placed my wallet and keys on the dresser. A new, unfamiliar key sat on the ring from a storage unit I had rented for seasonal gear. I touched the teeth and then let it rest. I looked at the time. I wrote the time. I lay on the far side of the bed and controlled my breathing like I do on crowded platforms when 2 buses arrive at once. Kira came in and set her phone on the nightstand. She said the chat at her office called me strict. She said strict men made women look for open windows. I said I closed windows at work when wind knocked schedules off the line. She said there was nothing to fix here. She said tomorrow would be normal if I behaved. I said I would handle things properly. She smiled like I had proved her point. She turned out the lamp. In the dark, my phone pulsed once with a muted light. I did not turn it over. I watched the square glow on the ceiling and fade. The apartment settled into a low hush. Somewhere a pipe ticked like a soft metronome. I closed my eyes and pictured routes drawn on a map, each line meeting another at a simple circle where people change buses and keep moving. I told myself to meet the next circle without noise. Door latch clicks. Morning came with gray light on the tiles and the smell of yesterday's tea. I dressed on the quiet side of the room and left before Kira's alarm. The stairwell held the cold of the night and the sound of my shoes on concrete. In the car, I set my phone on the seat and repeated 3 rules. No yelling, no scenes, no threats. I added the 4th. Clean steps only. At the depot lot, I parked facing the exit as I always do. It is a small habit that feels like a plan. The transit office woke the way a map wakes, 1 square at a time. I swiped in, set my bag under the desk, and brought the screens to life. The scheduling board showed color blocks like calm weather. I opened my email, then the ticket system, then the chat. The first ping was a meme about late buses. The second was a censored screenshot from someone's story that hinted at promotion perks. My name appeared in the comments as a stone. The laughing reaction stacked under it. I kept my face still. I closed the thread and opened a blank window. I typed nothing. I minimized it and pulled the ticket list over the space like a clean sheet. Victor rolled his chair over and asked if I had seen the rooftop plans for this week. He said the team wanted air and pictures. He said Kira's people might swing by. He tried to read my face. I said I had routes to confirm and would join later. He said I should loosen up. I said the city loosened enough without my help. He laughed and went back to his screen. A printer behind me began to spool for no reason I could see. The machine coughed out a blank page, paused, then pushed a real one. I cleared the tray and thought about signals and noise. At my desk, I opened the small spreadsheet with dates and 2 letter marks. I added a line for the meme and a line for the screenshot. I mirrored the file into Archive A and Archive B. A cloud pop-up blinked and said, "File uploaded successfully." I closed it and breathed once. A calendar reminder slid in. Meeting, personal 7:50 p.m., rooftop. I let it sit, then swiped it away. My phone lit with a message from a contact saved as a single emoji. The preview showed "saw your face" in the comments and then pulled itself back into the lock screen. I did not open it. I set the phone face down and felt the small weight of it like a coin I was not ready to spend. By late morning, a supervisor asked for the new weekend pattern. I printed the plan and carried it to his desk. On the way, I passed 2 drivers watching a loop on one of their phones. They did not hide the screen. The caption said, "Some men hate ambition." The clip looked like a rooftop angle. Not from our office, but from a friend of a friend. I did not stop. I kept my pace even. At the supervisor's door, I set the pages down and explained a detour that would save 5 minutes if an event ran long by the river. He nodded and said I was steady. I said I counted things so they would not fall. Near noon, Ria from HR stood at the threshold of our open plan space. She did not step in. She asked if I had a minute later for a quick word about general social guidelines and captions. Her tone was neutral and kind. She left the door open to the hall when I met her, the way she always does, so no one can say a private thing happened. She said videos travel fast, even when they are old or not as they look. She said the hospital and the city have similar rules about respect. She said she would send a reminder to keep captions gentle. She asked if I needed to file anything. I said, not now. I said I wanted quiet and I would keep my side clean. She said she appreciated the steadiness. I ate at my desk and answered 2 rote emails. I kept my phone off the table. The chat cooled after Ria's reminder went out. Victor sent me a side message that said hype got away from him and he was sorry. I typed thanks and left it. I checked my desktop. The clean tree held Archive A and Archive B. I opened each and confirmed the mirrors. I closed each. I wrote a sticky note that said bring forms and slid it under my ID in my wallet so I would feel it without seeing it. In the afternoon, the office emptied faster than usual. A breeze brought a smell of warm tar from the street. Victor asked again about the rooftop. He said Giles was rumored to stop by for a toast with Kira's team. He said that would be a picture. Heck, I said the view would be the same whether I came or not. He said the view was not the point. I turned off my monitor and put my notebook in my bag. The rooftop bar sat higher than the lines I ride. String lights hung like neat commas. Heaters kept the corners from going cold. Music moved around at shoulder height and made it hard to tell who laughed first. I took a place by the rail where the wind could keep me honest. I ordered water. I watched the glass fog on one side. Kira arrived with 2 colleagues and that chin angle that calls cameras. Giles followed 10 minutes later, all clean lines and polite distance. People rotated to greet him. Phones lifted. A small chant began near the high tables for a toast. Kira drifted to his side as if drawn by a hidden rope. She said something I could not hear. Her hand hovered just close enough to read as close on a screen. The group laughed. Giles kept his face in the safe range, the one that says yes to the party, but no to the record. Victor raised his phone for a loop. I did not stop him. I kept my hands on the rail. I counted to 5 and then to 5 again. A flash popped near the heaters. The team chat pinged in my pocket. I did not look. I scanned the faces and stored the order. Who smiled at what? Who looked at me? Who looked away? I thought about buses crossing at a circle, each one needing its moment and lane. Ria appeared with another manager and gave me a nod that said the reminder had gone out and would stand for now. I nodded back. I finished my water and asked for the same. The bartender's printer spooled a receipt for someone else and then jammed. He tugged it clear with a learned hand. Paper made its small cough. The sound felt like a stamp on the hour. Kira swung by me on her way to the rail. She asked if I planned to smile. I said I planned to be steady. She said steady was code for jealous. I said steady was code for finish the night without damage. She looked past me toward the city and smiled for a camera I could not see. I let the silence cover my answer. Giles stayed 3 steps away, as if he had measured it. When the second round of photos began, I moved to a corner heater and counted bodies between me and the stage area. It was a way to make math out of noise. The air smelled like citrus and hairspray. I thought of my desk and the 2 folders that never argue. I thought of the sticky note under my ID. I thought of the quiet click of the drawer when it closes. The chat in my pocket lit again. The banner showed a caption that said, "Some routes are better at night." I swiped the notice away without opening. A cloud reflection moved across the glass rail and broke on a shoulder. Victor lowered his phone and said the light loved Kira. I said the light loved anything that stood still. He nodded like I had told a joke, then looked past me. I left before anyone could turn me into a prop. In the elevator, my reflection looked like a person who had kept both hands open. The lobby smelled like coffee lids and floor cleaner. I walked toward the doors, then paused when a shadow lifted a hand at the security desk. Ria stepped out from the side hall and inclined her head toward the HR room again. Not urgent, just present. Her look asked if I wanted to put a boundary into words while the room was neutral. I considered the balance between silence and record. I considered the rule about clean steps. The manager asked for a quick word. Ria kept the HR door open so anyone walking by could see nothing dramatic was happening, She spoke in the voice she uses when she wants a room to cool down. She said social posts could travel in strange ways, and captions could turn a simple frame into a story. She said the city office liked things clean and polite. She said she would send a gentle reminder about not tagging coworkers in jokes, even if the jokes were light. She asked if I wanted to file anything formal. I said not now. I said I wanted the noise to fade on its own. I said I would keep my side careful. She thanked me for being measured. I thanked her for naming the line. I walked out with my hands easy at my sides and felt the hallway give me back my shape. Outside, the wind had a chill that made thought simple. I crossed the street to the community center because the team's after-work event would be there before we all met friends at the smaller rooftop nearby. Paper banners hung above folding tables. The room smelled like floor polish and orange soda. A volunteer asked if I could test the mic. I tapped it once, then turned the gain down until the squeak became a clear hum. I taped the cord to the floor the way I tape cables on a platform so no one trips. People began to arrive in pairs and small groups. Laughter made quick pockets of air that opened and closed. Kira walked in with 2 from her office and a bright color on her dress that photographs like a signal. Olive followed and said she loved community energy, then added that some men should learn to relax in public. She did not use my name. My name sat in the room anyway. Victor stood by the snack table with his phone, testing angles the way a person tests spoons at a store. He asked if the mic was live. I said it worked. He said the night needed a toast. I said the night needed clean exits. He laughed like I had told a joke. The MC did the welcome and asked for a quick share from anyone who had good news. A teacher talked about a grant. A student announced a small win at a contest. Then someone called for promotion stories. Heads turned toward Kira and then toward me. My body wanted to step backward. I chose stillness instead. Kira lifted her hand and went to the mic with a light step. She said ambition sometimes meant late nights. She said joking texts were part of high-pressure culture. She said spouses who schedule buses could trust the system to return people in the morning. The crowd laughed in a way that was not cruel yet, just big. I counted 5 breaths and looked at the exit sign so my eyes had somewhere safe to rest. Victor raised his phone. The red dot came on. Another phone appeared 2 rows back. The chant for a toast started near the punch bowl and spread, thin at first, then strong enough to carry cups. Kira tilted her head in that angle that makes cameras happy. She lifted a paper cup and touched it to the mic stand for effect. I stayed by the door. I do not try to outtalk a room that wants a show more than a fact. I let the moment be recorded for whoever needed it later. I told myself that silence is also a line. Giles arrived half an hour into the event with a careful smile and the posture of a man who knows he is a lens. He stood at the edge of a circle like a person waiting to cross a street. Kira drifted close, not touching, just near enough to make a frame easy. Olive clapped at nothing in particular and said this is what momentum looks like. Ronan said nothing, hands in pockets, eyes on the floor tiles. A kid bumped the mic stand and laughed at the sound. The MC made a small joke about feedback and closed the segment. Music from a playlist came up. People broke into pockets again. I moved to the water cooler and filled a paper cup. My hand did not shake. Victor came over and said he had posted a short loop to the community chat, just a vibe, nothing personal. He said captions were still kind. I said captions grow teeth. He looked at the screen and said he would add no words. I said silence can be a caption too. He nodded and drifted away. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The lock screen lit with a preview from a contact saved as a single emoji. It began with saw the loop and then pulled itself back to gray. I did not open it. Near the door, a neighbor from our building stood with her tote bag and watched the room like a person measuring fabric. She saw me see her and lifted her hand in a small, slow wave. I lifted mine back. She did not smile. She did not frown. She stored. The second act of the evening belonged to photos. People wanted proof they had been where the talk had been. Kira and Giles ended up in the same frame twice, both times with space enough to argue it was nothing, space tight enough to argue it was something. I let that frame belong to whoever needed it later. I checked my watch and wrote the time in my head. I do that when I cannot take out a pen without starting a scene. When the music shifted to a louder track, I stepped into the hall for air. The community center has a display case with trophies and a laminated map of the city bus network. My roots were there in thin lines. I thought about how lines touch at circles so people can change direction without breaking the map. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Meeting. Personal 8:10 p.m. I let it vibrate once and dismissed it. I would not be late to myself. Back inside, a small cluster near the stage began to chant again for one more story. The MC waved them off with a smile, but phones were already up. I saw Victor at the edge, not filming this time, looking down like a person who had seen his own reflection and wanted to put it away. Kira gave a little bow and said she had to save something for Monday. The cluster groaned, then laughed. Someone shouted that buses never stop at midnight. The joke landed and skidded. I felt the skid, but did not enter the lane. I left before the cleanup began. The air outside felt clean on the first step and then complicated on the second. I walked to the supermarket for bread and fruit. Fluorescent lights always flatten a day into list. The tile shone like a calm lake. I picked a basket and moved through the aisles without looking at the small screens in other hands. At the checkout, the cashier had her phone propped between the scanner and a display of gum. The loop from the hall played on it with a crown filter someone had added. My tie tip showed in the corner like a corner of a map. She looked up at me, then back down, then up again. She did not speak. I said good evening and placed the bread on the scale. The receipt printer spooled, coughed once, and paused. The cashier tugged the strip free with a learned motion. Paper made that same soft sound it makes in every building that keeps a record. I folded the receipt once, then tucked it behind my ID in the wallet where the sticky note sat. Bring forms. The card pressed a little against the leather. I wanted the pressure on my skin. Pressure makes memory hold. Outside, rain had started as a mist. The neighbor stood under the awning, tote bag at her feet. She watched a clip on her phone, then looked at my face as if laying two tracing sheets together. She did not ask a question. She did not need to. Her thumb moved. My phone vibrated. A screenshot arrived in my messages with my name under the loop and a caption that called me stone again. I let the screen light me and then dim. I did not reply. I carried the bag in one hand and kept the other hand open. On the walk home, the crosswalks blinked like calm instructions. I followed each. I counted my steps from one corner to the next. I kept my mouth closed and my shoulders down. I told myself I would write one line at the desk and file it where it belonged. I told myself the house would be quiet, even if the phones were not. I told myself the next room would have a chair, a clock, a drawer that clicked, and a file tree that never argued about truth. Neighbor stares, then texts a screenshot. The family restaurant stretched a long table down the center of the room like a narrow street. Bowls of salad sat like small parks along it. I arrived early and chose a chair near the corner where the air felt slower. The servers moved in clean lines. Kira came with Olive on her arm and Ronan a step behind. Cousins filed in, already holding phones. I stood to help with coats and then sat again. I told myself to match the servers. Quick hands, quiet feet, no spills. The room smelled like basil and dish soap. The light was kind to faces. It was not kind to screens. Plates landed and small talk did its work. A nephew announced he had a better filter for rooftop videos. A cousin asked if Ambition still needed late nights. Kira smiled and lifted her chin. Olive said men who schedule buses should remember that roads change. She did not use my name. I folded my napkin into a triangle and placed it under my fork. When laughter rolled toward me, I let it pass over and go on to the next chair. I kept my voice calm and my words short. I said, respect kept home steady. Olive said respect was fear in a suit. Ronan breathed through his nose and looked down at the plate. The loop from the community hall appeared without being invited. A cousin slid a phone along wine glasses as if it were a dish to share. The caption called me stone. The crown filter sat over Kira's head and tilted toward the mic. Laughter gathered and spread. I counted to 5. I thanked the server for water. I set the glass down as if it were breakable truth. I did not touch the phone. I did not call for quiet. I pictured a map with lines that met at circles and told myself to make the next circle with care. Mara arrived with Theo and sat across from me. She looked at my face like a nurse checking a pulse. She asked if I wanted the quiet seat or the talk seat. I said, the quiet seat. She nodded and buttered bread. Theo swung his legs and watched the room. He asked if phones could make a person cry. I said phones could make a person feel small. He asked if I was small now. I said I was steady. He said steady sounded like a bridge. I said that was the point. Olive raised a glass and said the family should celebrate momentum. She said some people drag when others rise. She said husbands must adapt to modern stories. Glasses touched. A cheer moved in a thin wave. I lifted my water an inch and set it down without a sound. Kira added that texts can be jokes when everyone is grown. She tilted her head toward me the way a person shows a camera where to look. A cousin laughed too loud, then looked at me to see what my face would do. It did nothing. The servers brought pasta with neat edges. A child at the far end asked why adults make jokes about someone sitting at the same table. The table stalled. Olive said jokes were love in bright clothes. Mara said love did not trip people on purpose. Kira scrolled under the table and smiled at something I could not see. I felt the belt tighten in my chest, then loosen again when I counted to 5. I tasted salt and basil and the metal of a fork. I named the plates in my head like devices at work: pasta, salad, bread, water, knife, fork, phone. When dessert came, the room brightened as if sugar had its own light. A small sparkler hissed over a slice and sent a soft smoke line up to the air duct. Phones rose again for a picture and then for a loop. I excused myself to wash my hands. In the hallway mirror, my face looked like a person who had slept by counting lines instead of sheep. I dried my hands, returned to the table, and took my seat without asking for space. Space belongs to those who do not demand it. After coffee, Olive said we should walk, because walking makes talk smoother. We moved to the park across the street. The light there had a late afternoon color, thin and honest. Theo ran to the swing and asked for a push. I pressed the chain with 2 fingers each time. He asked if bosses sleep at the office. I said offices sleep with screens, not people. He asked if adults say sorry. I said adults should say sorry faster than children. He kicked higher and let the air do some work for me. Kira stood by the fence and angled her phone for a story. Olive took a photo of the swing. Ronan watched a dog chase a leaf and missed his chance to stop the leaf. A neighbor from our building walked a stroller along the path and slowed when she saw us. She did not wave, she stored. I took a breath and let it out slow. I told myself to name the parts I could carry: time, place, tone, words. I left the rest for later. We stopped at the pharmacy on the way back because Olive wanted a cream she buys after heavy meals. The doors chimed. The place smelled like paper and mints. A display of greeting cards shone like small mirrors. The line moved in lazy steps. Olive said, ambition is not a crime, that men who fear attention lose good wives to bolder men. I said I did not fear attention. I said I wanted respect. She called respect a word men use when they want control. I said I used respect at work when I wanted buses not to collide. She rolled her eyes and asked the clerk about the sale. The receipt printer coughed a strip and jammed. The clerk tugged it free. Paper made that soft sound every building makes when it records a moment. Kira looked at my headphones and smiled like she had scored a point. I put the headphones on with no sound. Noise softened by a layer. I could hear my breath and a small hum behind the counter. A mirror by the sunscreen rack showed my face without filters. It looked tired, but it looked like me. I touched the wallet in my pocket and felt the sticky note press against my ID. The press kept the word in my skin: forms. Outside, the parking lot wind put a scrape under the carts. A flyer tried to fly and failed. Mara stood beside me and said I did not have to stay until a scene showed up. I said I would leave before heat turned into words. She said, do it clean. I said I would. Olive told Kira that men who fix machines always try to fix people and fail. She said I needed to be fun or be alone. Ronan looked at the line of carts and spoke so softly I almost missed it. He said texts turn into nights, and nights turn into boxes on a truck, and then into rooms with no pictures on the walls. He kept his eyes on the carts. He did not look at me. He did not look at Kira. He said a person should be careful what they call a joke. Olive told him not to be dramatic. He said he had seen houses fall after one laugh. We drove home on side streets. I parked facing the street, as always. On the balcony, I moved a photo into Archive A and then into Archive B. A small cloud notice blinked file uploaded successfully. It faded like breath on glass. Inside, I placed the thin utilities binder on the table and slid it a finger width to the left. I opened my laptop, checked the spreadsheet with initials and dates, and added a line for the long table and a line for the swing. I minimized the screen when the door latch clicked. I closed the drawer with a soft private sound that says boundary. I set 2 mugs on opposite counters and left them there to dry. In the hall, Mara texted a heart. Theo sent a sticker of a bridge with a smile. Olive posted hearts on Kira's story and said success loves late nights. I let the notifications pass like buses I did not need. I breathed in and out and looked at the clean file tree that never argues. I put my phone face down. I waited for the next circle to arrive on time. A parent delivers a quiet warning. Night pressed against the windows like a careful hand. I stood in the hallway and listened to the apartment breathe. The door latch had clicked an hour ago, then settled. I turned on the desk lamp and let a small circle of light sit on the wood. I opened my laptop and kept the brightness low. The clean file tree waited. Archive A and Archive B. I added 2 short notes to a plain spreadsheet with dates and 2 letter marks. One for the long table, one for the park swing. I saved and mirrored the file. A small cloud pop-up blinked and said, "File uploaded successfully." I let it fade on its own. I took my wallet out and looked at the yellow sticky note. It said, "Bring forms." I pressed it once with my thumb and slid it back behind my ID so the word would press into the leather and then into my skin. I placed a thin binder labeled Utilities on the desk. It was still thicker than bills should make it. I did not open it. I moved it a finger width to the right so my eyes would hit it again at dawn. I took a quiet photo of the top corner of a document on the desk where only the margin showed. I hid the photo inside the gallery between beach pictures and a birthday cake. I closed the phone and turned it face down. The apartment had the faint smell of printer toner that lingers when paper has been busy somewhere in a building. The window rattled once, then stopped. I put on my headphones and did not start music. The world softened by a layer. I could hear my own breath and the hum of the refrigerator in the next room. I opened a browser and typed 3 searches in separate tabs: storage options, delivery tracking, notary near me. I read addresses and hours and then closed the tabs without saving anything. I left no bookmarks. I checked the time on the corner of the screen. I wrote the time on a small card. I closed the card and placed it in the drawer. In the morning, I drove to the co-working space because I needed a different kind of quiet. The lobby smelled like new carpet and coffee lids. A child counted his steps on the tile and laughed at the echo. I sat near a window and put my headphones on again. A calendar took shape with small, simple entries. Storage stop 9:40 a.m. Pickup forms 3:30 p.m. Meeting, personal 8:10 p.m. Each reminder would vibrate and then fade. I plugged a small USB stick into the side of my laptop. Its label had today's date in thin black letters. I copied a folder that held screenshots, times, and 2 letter marks. I ejected the USB and placed it on the table. I taped a spare under the inner flap of my bag. The tape pressed like a promise. My phone buzzed with a message from Victor. He said the loop had been taken down from a few chats. He said Hype had run ahead of him and he was sorry. I typed thanks and left it. Another ping arrived from a contact saved as a single emoji. It said, "Saw the crown filter die." I let the notification slide away. A third ping came from Olive with a stack of hearts under Kira's new story. The story called Men Who Fear Attention. Tired roads. I set the phone face down and kept my hands near the keyboard, but not on it. I walked to the window and watched a delivery truck back into a loading bay across the street. The driver held a clipboard and moved like a person who trusts checklists. The tailgate creaked. Boxes slid to the edge. I thought about routes and how thin lines hold heavy loads if they are measured first. I returned to the table and wrote a single sentence under the word statement on a blank document. The sentence said, "Keep it clean." I deleted it and closed the file. The title looked better alone. At noon, I stopped at a small storage unit I had rented for seasonal gear. The hall smelled like dust and metal. My new unfamiliar key slid into the lock and turned without a sound. The light in the unit came on by string. Boxes stood in neat rows. I placed a small envelope on a top shelf. It was unsealed and empty. It did not need to be anything else yet. I stood still for a count of 5, then turned the light off and pulled the door down until it settled into its rails. The lock clicked. The sound was small, but it lasted. Back at home, the stairwell felt cool. A neighbor's door closed above me, and footsteps paused. The pause lived on the landing for a breath, and then moved on. I carried my bag inside and set it on the chair. Kira stood at the table with her phone angled. She said the family liked her story and that I should post something fun so I would stop looking like stone. I said I would not feed a circle that ate names. She said I was threatening by being quiet. I said I was planning. She said plans were dull. I said dull lines keep bridges standing. She said she would go out later with friends who understood pressure. I said I would keep the house steady. I walked to the kitchen. 2 mugs stood on opposite counters. I left them there. I opened the laptop and minimized the spreadsheet when footsteps moved behind me. My phone lit with a call labeled private. I let it ring and fall back into the dark. I put on my headphones, still without sound. I opened the calendar again and set a faint alarm called Paper Drop 11:10 a.m. for the next day. The label calmed me more than it should. The label made a line I could step on. Mara texted a single heart. Then she wrote soup later. I typed yes. She wrote, "Do it clean." I sent back a simple check mark. Ronan sent nothing. His silence had the weight of a door held open in case someone needed to leave without saying why. I placed the utilities binder back on the desk and smoothed the cover with my palm. I did not open it. I looked at the clean tree on the screen and the neat labels, Archive A, Archive B. They never argued about tone. Evening brought a thin rain that made the city smell like cold stone and brake dust. I took a short walk to the parking garage and stood near a pillar where the sound of cars smoothed into a low hush. A man walked past, and his steps paused for a second. The pause had a shape to it, like a hand on a door. I stayed where I was and let my breath find a slow pace. I watched the elevator doors open and close. I named the noises. Motor, belt, bell. I wrote the time in my head. I did not take out a pen because the garage is a place where pens make scenes. Back at the apartment, the door latch clicked a quiet hello. Kira sat on the couch with the TV lighting her face. She said everyone was calming down and that I should thank her for handling things with charm. I said I would be clear about what I could accept. I said I would not be part of jokes that used my name. She said I would not dare do anything. She said I should try living. I said I wanted dignity. She said dignity sounded like an old word. I said old words keep roofs from leaking. She laughed at the ceiling as if the ceiling were the joke. I moved to the hall and placed my wallet on the dresser where I would see the sticky note at dawn. I opened the locked drawer and checked the USB with today's date. The metal tongue slid back with a small click and then clicked forward again when I closed the drawer. The sound told me I had not imagined the plan. The sound said the house still had edges that held. I stood in the doorway to the kitchen and looked at the 2 mugs on opposite counters. They waited like tools after work. I took one breath and then another. I turned off the lamp and let the apartment settle into the kind of quiet that helps people hear their own steps. Kira asked if I was done performing. I said I would handle this properly. I did not raise my voice. I did not move my hands. I placed each word like a measured stone. He states calmly, I will handle this properly. The office tower lobby smelled like cold stone and coffee lids. Noon light squared itself on the floor. I stood near the security desk where the printer sometimes coughed visitor passes. The elevator bell chimed. Kira stepped out with a face prepared for a talk. A man with a badge confirmed her name and handed her an envelope. He stated the contents in an even voice, a petition for divorce with temporary possession and financial orders attached. Service was complete. She said this was extreme, that I wanted control, that it was only a joke. I said I would follow every process and would not argue in lobbies or comments. The guard's printer spooled a pass for someone else and stamped the moment with paper. My phone lit with Mara's heart and dimmed. Olive's call blinked and vanished. Kira held the envelope like it might soften. It did not. I turned to the glass doors and walked out.